Recommendation that the Planning and Development Committee meeting agenda for June 22nd, 2022 be approved as circulated. Yes, yes, all in favor, good, thanks. Adoption of the minutes, recommendation that the minutes of the Planning and Development Committee meeting held on June the 8th, 2022 be adopted. Lord, Brian, or no, Deb and Brian. All in favor, yes, approved, thanks. Development Services update, Scott.
All right, so we have our current applications. I think this committee is pretty familiar with them. This is even out of date, and we even got one on this committee meeting, so we're trying to get through them as quickly as possible. You can see the highlighted ones will be considered by council today, and then this list might be shorter, but it might be longer next time you see it. And maybe just an update on the building permits. So the last time we showed in May, at the last meeting in May, we showed the building permits and the timelines to complete them. I think on that spreadsheet, there are 18 building permits that hadn't been issued. So 5 of those have been issued. 5 of them require permits. So some of these are the permits that are to be considered by council. And then we have 7 that we'll consider like more complex buildings and or complex applications. So that's why those ones are taking that time. And from June 1st, we've had 7 new building permits and 3 of them have been issued. And the ones that are waiting to be issued, yeah, they're probably just little minor things. Most of them will probably go through. So yeah, we're moving forward, moving lots of paper and processing lots of applications, but any questions, we can answer them.
Scott, could you just on S 21080 DVP SL 31711 Parksville denied? I can't remember. You guys denied, or did it come here?
711 Parksville?
Yeah.
Denied.
What it says.
It says on this.
Pay down on the ones completed and not done. So
It was an old variant.
trying to remember why.
Okay, so that one was, you remember when they came in for like the one-off? That was like the very first unit they were doing before the subdivision even occurred.
Yeah.
And it was for yeah, varying the setback of the backyard
That was
3 meters.
Yeah.
And so that, yeah, I think this committee recommended denied it, council denied it. Yeah.
Right. Thanks.
Sarah? I can remember it.
Any other comments or questions? No?
No.
Okay. New business. 105 Riverside.
That's this.
So I think the applicant's in the room. That'll be Norm. Is that correct? Or
Karen.
Sorry.
Yeah, Karen's the applicant. Do you want me to start with my presentation and then?
I'm just going to read it out. To consider development permit number 22122 BP for the property leak describes lot 1 district lot 452 Kamloops Division Yale District Plan Cape AP 89529 located at 105 Riverside Avenue for development purpose or permit of 15 townhouses. Okay, so go ahead, Scott.
Okay. So this is an application for a development permit. It's for 1005 Riverside. The property is actually 2 properties, 113 Wet Up and 1005 Riverside, and they do have an application in to subdivide along Riverside to create 2 parcels. It's in the designated Riverside, the area subject for this development permits in the Riverside transitional area, just on the east side of Riverside, as you can see. And then the property is zoned C4A, which is the commercial residential, which allows for either, you know, a traditional commercial accommodation or multifamily development. So they're proposing a multifamily development for 15 units in townhouse style buildings. And they're, yeah, here's the site plan you can see. Duplexes, 7 duplexes, and then 1 standalone townhouse. You can see it gets access from Riverside with a lane and then a turnaround. storage at the end. They've proposed garbage collection would be collected individually through a contractor. Right now, in the subdivision development servicing bylaw, the requirement is sidewalk on both sides of Riverside. We've talked to them about the need for parking on Riverside. So one option could be the parking on Riverside. So four parking stalls as opposed to sidewalk. That's something that engineering has looked at as well for less sidewalk, more places to store snow, and then this could help with parking. Yeah, if we go to the next slide, Steffi. So the permit really considers the form and character of the buildings, getting rid of long blank walls and having some kind of character in the buildings. So it looks like some long blank walls here, but those would be the ones that be facing the units. And they're also looking to use different finishing materials and bump outs to break up those walls. Colors are mostly grays and blacks, and then the front doors would have a vibrant color to distinguish each front door and give the property a little bit of character. Then the landscaping, they're looking at landscaping, 2 to 3 meters of landscaping around the outside of the property, as you can see. They're not proposing any exterior lighting that would reflect into neighbors' yards. Mostly like a bollard type lighting, and then individual lights within the property. And generally it meets the form and character of the requirements of the development permit area. The one thing is in this zone or in this designated area, they're looking at creating that streetscape. So when people are walking down the street, they're encouraged to go and interact with the property. Seeing there isn't a commercial component, they're proposing a micro suite in that first unit. So yeah, there wouldn't be a sidewalk. They would have some landscaping. But yeah, there wouldn't be that storefront element to it that the designation calls for. But yeah, I think this is a pretty good proposal, and it meets the form and character guidelines. And yeah, Karen is here. Karen, do you want to make a presentation or answer questions?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I share. Yeah.
Morning. This is our second time we've been here. The first time we brought you a 17 unit project, and the scope has been reduced. The reason is the fire flow capacity to the site was analyzed by Lawson Engineering, and it was discovered that if we reduce the amount of units and did them in more duplex type style rather than 3 or 4plex, that it would meet the water flow capacity as it is today. So that was the reason for changing it. It also makes it more appealing for the whole development in the sense of just duplexes. We spent a lot of time on the design and the exterior and trying to make it change. Now, unfortunately, it just looks like a lot of grays there. That's not the intent. We have a rendering that's in process. It should be ready tomorrow. And what it's going to show you is the varying amounts of colors, of the different colors of gray and whatnot, that's going to change on each story. So it's going to look different on the bump outs and whatnot. It's not going to be the same all around. The other item that I think everything else that Scott has said has identified everything that we have changed. We've looked at the requirements in the official community plan. We've done that redesign. We've got a robust landscaping plan that will provide a real interest from the street. There will be tall grasses, there'll be lavender, there'll be different varieties of things that right now when you drive down there, you don't really see anything in front of any other multifamily complexes. You see grass, you see, kind of an older landscape, and we're looking for a modern landscape that's gonna pop. It's gonna look smart with the low lighting bollards that we're proposing. We've even designed the name of the project being Riverside and trying to, just appeal to a buyer who's looking at the newer construction in the area and at different places and kind of looking for something different. I'm open to any questions if you have questions.
I have a couple of comments if I could. The first one is on the setback from the street. The property next door, their fence is probably, I don't know, 50 or 20 feet back from the roadway. Is that where this property line is going to be, Scott?
So do you want to go back, Steffi, to the site plan? So on the north or south?
All of on the Riverside Road, access in there, so the buildings are going back this way from the road. Property to the south, which has been developed, their fence is back every time somebody develops over there. So the same as the property in front of Portside across the road from it, it's got the setback in it, which what we were taking away from people to widen out that road and actually make it that was parking. And so is that part of this plan, or did that get missed?
So I believe on this one, the road dedication is the maximum width. So there wouldn't be any road dedication for 1005 Riverside.
There would not be any road dedication. So then how do we get the little indent to the property to the south, and then up the road we get another little indent? So what are we gonna do? Make a curvy road going up there?
So if you maybe go back to one of the first drawings, Steffi. Yeah, so as you can see, this road, all the road dedication has been provided. It gets a 25-meter road dedication.
Okay.
So yeah, when the next people subdivide, they would have to give up that property in front of their property, but this one, there wouldn't be any road dedication on.
Yeah, because the one beside, okay, I see that, that's right. Should have looked at the second page of that drawing.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the other comment was that when you came in here the last time with your presentation, we kind of said that our OCP had commercial front. And you chose not to have that. Instead, you chose to put micro suites in the base, in the lower.
One just on the
Just on
riverside.
on the one, the rest of them don't have that in it. All the rest of the units don't have a micro suite.
One micro suite is in the first unit, fronting the road. It would be accessible by the road. That also could be used as a small office or something. We've designated to have the ability to have that micro suite, which our understanding was using it as in a commercial purpose. We evaluated the idea of putting in a storefront, and we also compared it against the proposal that is up the street over around from Main Street, 1129 Riverside, and that has a commercial component in it. That proposal, that development permit, at the back of the property, and then the storefront in the front. And I could see why, because number one, that property is in the town center designation, whereas our property is in the Riverside transition area designation. So they're two different OCP, all within town center, but they've got different items. So our proposal is strictly residential in nature. We're not trying to create a mixed use project. We're 2 blocks south of Main Street, where there is storefronts, where there is availability for people to go and restaurants, etc. There's also more commercial on the other side, Riverside. But we feel like it would be in isolation to create a commercial storefront there, and that it could be something where a strata owner purchasing the unit, if they're limited to only having a storefront, and it could be setting up potentially without other things around them, something to fail. That's what we're worried about. Anytime you attach a type of, use requirement attached to the land or potential use covenants or whatever, that makes it really difficult to sell. People will not want to have restrictions on it other than what is allowed in the zone, which the zone does allow for the multifamily. I think that sums it up. We just think that marketing a home with that commercial component would be really difficult. And it would also change the nature and character of it's supposed to be a residential, quiet neighborhood type thing of only 15 units. It's meant to be where people are living and not, and if they want something commercial, well, then they would head to what's on the street or down the street to the town. Still,
the OCP on that road still says that that's a 0 setback road. So the 6 meter setback is really not that whole thing was designed to have commercial in the front of it and a 0 setback. So I'm just asking the question. The last question that I have is that you have a micro suite there in unit 1, which you've got labeled 115, but they all have a bathroom downstairs off the garage. So
yeah.
For you, don't you have to be at 351 for that?
Sorry.
Talking about the flood construction level.
That will have to be at flood construction level. We're proposing the whole thing would be at flood construction level and the whole complex. Yeah, it's easy. We're already at a certain number. We don't add much at all.
It was just a question because that whole area is.
Yep.
Any comment?
Yeah, I would say that's just, understanding where 351 sits on that road. I'd say, that's something to really look at as far as fill, maybe take another look at that. Just trying to save you a little bit of work, that up. So mechanical would not be allowed underneath that level. But yeah, no, if you've got it all sorted out, great. I agree. I agree with, it's from the Zoom. I agree with Jeff as far as the, that retail sort of commercial space. That was the idea, from the beginning, and it was all the way along there, and other, if other projects along that road that didn't happen, then I believe they should have. But that's that's how I feel about it. I think that if there's a way to do that, it would be nice. It would be nice to see that, because it's not about right now what it looks like. It's about 20 years from now. If you don't put it in now, it's not going to be there. So that's my perspective. It's a council decision, not this committee. So, but I really like the project. I think it's great. It's good. Last time you were here, you talked about, sort of a price point, and that's something something the town really needs, is that level. We're very short on inventory, and that's a great thing. I worry about short-term rental. It's some of these projects they would just to get that long-term rental, there's covenants you can put on title for certain units, so that you can if it all becomes a short-term Airbnb, just you're going to sell it to somebody and they're going to do what they want, then that would be too bad, because of our need for this long-term rental. So there are things that can be done, but something to discuss.
Go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, first off, I like Scott's initial comments where we're not gonna orphan a sidewalk there. We're gonna leave the sidewalk on the other side and have that little bit of parking there. About the landscaping and just that, so I agree with the comments so far. I like the project. I would like it more if there was that bit of commercial facing Riverside. But my question is if we're leaving it with just the residential and we've got that bit of parking and that landscaping, the side views, we're not going to have one of those blank side walls facing Riverside, right?
Those are interior walls. Those are in between the units.
Okay, those are strictly interior. Yeah, because obviously, you know, like other projects, other places where you've got that side of a building facing your street. And if it looks like the side of a building, it really destroys the streetscape as far as I'm concerned. So even if we don't go commercial, I'd really like to see something that makes it looks like something.
They have detail on the,
Okay.
on that one unit. There's
Yeah.
a bump out that runs.
Okay,
all the way down
perfect.
and Stuff, so there's
Yeah.
interest there, but
Okay.
It will make it clear once we have that rendering.
yeah,
Identify that better. Yeah. Definitely on the south or the east unit, fronting the residentials, that one didn't have extra bump outs or anything like that. It just has the doorway at this point, but the landscaping will screen it. And it's quite, we're meeting all of the setbacks.
Comments, Corey?
Yeah, through the chair, I really like the project, love to see it go ahead. You know, I think everybody's, our team here was all on the OCP and put the OCP together, Shane and a group of business people in the community, and it was pretty strong about the commercial on Riverside, but yeah, love the project. One question, and it's not that it really matters. Yeah, what are you gonna do with the church? Like it's an old building, and I've been in it, it's pretty, but I was just curious.
I want it.
No.
I think that's the thing is if somebody wants it, try to facilitate that.
You never know, somebody might take it. It's probably one of the oldest buildings in town. But anyways, it's pretty rough. Thank you, Karen.
So, yeah, the church is up for grabs. Maybe the museum wants it. I'm getting, one of our team members is on the Zoom call. He's texting me and saying various things. So I just want to make sure I get that out. As far as the micro suites, we talked about it just being listed in that first unit for now. If there was intent going forward where others wanted to have micro suites on the bottom, we would try to work with that. We realize it's a business license item that you have to get a business license for. We've reviewed that. I think going forward, we can't identify everything that a strata unit owner is going on, right? They're going to purchase it and then they'll have to deal with whatever the constraints are of the zoning bylaw.
Just to that end, because the whole discussion's been about like the idea of we don't have any rental properties and you're gonna build these and sell them. So we don't have any control over what the people do. Would you be opposed to having a covenant put on there that basically said no short-term rentals, although that area is allowed?
Yes, we would. That would severely crush the project.
So that's our point exactly. We're trying to create housing for people that are moving to this community. And you're building a 50-unit development for short-term rentals. Because when I looked at the whole thing, I honestly asked, I was gonna ask that question. Is that your intention that this is gonna be sold as short-term rentals, basically when people buy it? Because it's killing us as far as like all the businesses in town can't find employees because they can't find a place for them to live. So if you're not gonna put in the front storefront, then I would strongly suggest, I don't know what the rest of council or anybody else thinks, but I would suggest that they all have a micro suite in there, which is guaranteed as long-term rental. Because that's what we need the worst in this community. So, I mean, I know you're in the development business and you want to build something, and we're welcome, and it's a great project, but if the whole thing turns into short-term rental, no benefit to Sycamore. Really? Go ahead, Sarah.
Just a question to clarify language. So when you say long-term rental, do you mean that you would envision owners would not live on the property at all? Or do you just mean that owners would live there and that's their home? Not.
Well, either or, but not short-term rental. And that's all I'm saying, but that's not our choice. That has to go to council. I'm just making that comment to see if there's a way to find if there's any flexibility in what you're trying to do here, because if you want to build them and sell them and you're already just acknowledge the idea that the people that are interested in buying them are interested in buying them as a short-term rental. So that doesn't do anything. We looked at this project as a project for people to move and buy and live here, not as a project for people to move and have a short-term rental. So,
The comment from my colleagues are, these are meant to be affordable. They are meant to be for people who wish to live there full time or only visit in the summer if they wish. We want those options for them, not to be tied to something. We have people who are interested, who would like to buy and say, yes, I would like to have a place that I can come to all summer, maybe in the winter. Maybe they want to rent out the micro suite long-term during the off season or something, or maybe just use it seasonally. Or maybe it's just the kids downstairs. We really don't want to have things to be tied. Long-term owners need the option, right? Long-term owners need the option to short-term in this market. You just need that option.
It's impossible that you can't sell it and then tell somebody how they're gonna, it's their own property at that stage. But if something, and I don't know exactly what that is, but if something was done maybe on a couple of them or something like that, I'm just understanding it, but it would be impossible to say, I'm gonna sell this thing to you, but then this is how you need to use it. It just, I don't know. Sarah, I don't think.
I have a question. I have a question. So the question is, would there be any interest in maybe having micro suites in more of the units to sort of set it up for the potential that,
Yes,
okay,
yeah, we want that to be an option.
Because if they,
we'd consider pre-building them with suites in them? Not necessarily all of them, but
Yeah, I mean, it can be a tenant improvement later on or whatever. We don't want to force people into it, right? You would assume that you would look at the design and go, is that what you're looking for? You're looking for the micro suite? We just want that as an option. We're not saying we're forcing people to do it. We will build accordingly to people who are already, lining up to look at it.
yeah.
go ahead.
Through the chair. So I was commenting earlier, if for argument's sake, you had a micro suite in every unit, one of the things we're talking about with the short-term rental regulations is having somebody on site or in close proximity in terms of managing the short-term rental. So there could potentially be a win-win there in terms of micro suite, which might be desirable for staff, somebody that works at Moose's, for example, but is also your on-site person, if for the person that purchases in terms of managing the short-term rental. So kind of kill two birds with one stone is one option, but just throwing that out there.
So, any comments? Gord, go ahead, sorry. Didn't look that way.
That's right. Yeah, Karen, it's a great project and it's really needed in the community and everybody, we're all struggling as a community to try to find some accommodations for some workers that Sycamoose has had no regulation on short-term rentals and we have multiple people that own multiple homes that are short-term rental and so we're just trying to, once we get this zoning bylaw going and our also short-term rental zoning bylaw going, I mean, all stratas, we don't really, I mean, stratas kind of manage themselves, their rentals are voted in and voted out by a 3/4 vote or whatever. It's just that we don't want you to be frustrated because we don't want this project. We're just trying to make it work. And 1 or 2 units would be great if you could put,
Right, and we're definitely saying, if there's a need for seasonal workers to have their own unit like that, that would be a perfect example of using those in a way to help the community.
Yeah.
Definitely open to that.
it's a
Absolutely.
mortgage helper too, like
Yes, and that's the other selling point is the mortgage helper of being able to do that.
you could probably rent all of those. If there was a micro suite in each one of those and you went to all the restaurants
Yeah.
Hotels, I've got people that could come in and work for me, but they just have no place to live.
Yeah.
And those, and
It would
they,
be affordable for them.
it would be an affordable thing and it could be a really good solution, but like you say, you don't want to lose a sale because somebody wants all that room for their boat or whatever, I totally understand that. We're all supportive of this and we want you to be able to sell everything quickly, so. But it would be nice to put something in place,
So
or
flexible.
maybe even some marketing information. I don't know. It's a tough one.
Can I ask, this isn't covered to tonight's agenda, is it?
Right, yeah, it's not gonna be on the agenda tonight for council.
So can I ask the proponent and staff if you guys could have a conversation? Like I said, when I started looking at this, because when we had the initial conversation, when you came in here, it was sold to us basically that this is gonna be for sale for affordable housing for blah, blah, blah. And now you're saying that, yeah, the people that are looking at short-term rental. And
In the micro suite or in the short term, up to want all options, right? And we want people to be able to live there too. Obviously, a mixture of people would be the best.
you have it's gonna be a strata,
Yes,
so you have to create your own strata rule.
correct.
So could you have a conversation with staff to discuss it? Because like this project was endorsed by this group for you to come back with your final thing based on, we thought that they were gonna be affordable purchased houses where people were gonna live here. And it wasn't gonna end up short-term rental, because across the street, we got hundreds of condos that are short-term rental and they punt everybody out, come pay long weekend and you get to move back in after September 15th. Well, that doesn't help our community. So if you could have a conversation with staff to try and come up with some way to mitigate the issue, because it's the cart before the horse. We need people to live in town in an affordable place so that we got people that are here to work. And short-term rentals don't accomplish that at all. So that's why we came up with a short-term rental policy to try to eliminate some of it. So that there either became houses available for sale at a reasonable price, and reasonable today is still 500,000.
Yeah.
See,
And that's why you can control them by issuing business licenses or denying business licenses, correct?
Right.
We still are on the same path. I mean, it would be the simplest, easiest way to simply sell to people who wish to live there full-time all the time. These aren't meant to be luxury townhomes that you only use part-time. They are meant to be places for people to live. But we do realize that there are people who have the ability to have a second home and only come during seasonally. So we just don't want to
that's not,
push on that ability for those people to do that. But if they're the only owner and they choose to live there full time, that would be ideal.
there are lots of places that the people have that are their second dwelling, but they're not short-term rental in it either. That's why I suggested that would you be opposed to making that a non-short-term rental, because then at least when the buyer buys it, he knows for sure that it's not going to be allowed as short-term rental. So if you and staff could have a short conversation and come up with something, because I don't know what it plans on coming to council, but at least just try to exhaust options, right? Like if you did a micro suite in all of them and they were all there, most likely the people that buy upstairs, whether they live there or not, it's a mortgage helper would rent it out. And if you're gonna bring in enough material to make it a 351, then they're all legal. So it's like people are buying a house and building these, what do you call them, carriage houses in the backyard. So, it's a 400 or 500 square foot thing. So it's a mortgage helper, mother-in-law suite, whatever you want to call it. So, and we desperately need that. So
We think that the micro suites would achieve that. And if we were bound to not being able to do any type of short-term rentals, whether it's micro suite or in the project in general, it might kill the project.
okay. Well, still, if you could, staff, you could
Yeah, I think this one, it's a little bit more complex as we have the subdivision happening. And then we have the development permit. And the official community plan, like, you know, says they want that, they want to create that lively streetscape. Although I think maybe through the subdivision, we can, you know, give them a variance where they wouldn't have to build the sidewalk. And then they wouldn't need to provide that, the storefront really wouldn't work, but again, having, you know, the building needs to, the OCP says now the building needs to invite people to interact with it, right? You know, we want that lively streetscape. So if we're gonna move away from that, then what, I guess the question is, what is Sycamoose getting back from away from the OCP? Definitely a need for short-term housing, or sorry, long-term housing. A need necessarily for short-term rentals, but the property right now is zoned. They could build a hotel, right?
Yeah. They
could build multifamily. The short-term rental option is almost a combination of the two, but you know, if it was a hotel, you'd almost have to build something in there for employees because there just aren't places for employees to live. I've talked to Karen about it. I think, you know, it would be a huge benefit to the community if one unit or the micro suite was identified through a covenant saying for 10 years, it had to provide long-term rental. So somebody isn't getting kicked out and displaced through the summer, and provide some presence there in the community. And the trade-off for that would be, I couldn't see it really hampering the sale of that one unit if, hey, you have a guaranteed mortgage helper. And the trade-off would be, you know, you wouldn't have to build that storefront and you wouldn't have to provide that sidewalk there. But we can definitely continue the conversation.
Thank you, everyone.
No, thank you. Like I said, it's a great project. It's just presented that it was gonna be affordable housing for purchase and that.
That's a tough thing to manage when your zoning bylaw specifically says multifamily is a permitted use, and I realize it's changing. But that was the intent, that was the purchase agreement is based on being able to do multifamily. And we did inquire about short-term rentals, and we were given definite green lights of go forward. So it's hard to you know, entrench this into a zoning bylaw. It's more in that OCP. And I get the vision for the future, but we're way down the line yet, and there's until there's a little bit more development, I can't see how a commercial component is really going to make a big difference there.
Okay, thank you. You got something, Gord?
Yeah, just, you know, quickly again, I mean, our zoning bylaws are what they are right now, and yeah, there's no reason why we would turn it away other than that, what our OCP reads, and it's a council decision. And, you know, it's like the lofts, even the lofts on Main Street all had a commercial component of them. And even if you put a small window on that corner lot facing the street, and whether they use it for commercial or not, it's available for commercial. And but yeah, no, unless it's the short-term rental thing, we can't control that until the bylaws in place. But you know, we did Mare Landing, 66 units. We thought we were in the rental houseboat business, and we decided to do some condos, and we thought, well, we're in the rental business, we might as well rent the condos. Well, we got into selling them, and everybody who wanted to buy them wanted them long-term. And we said, so right off the hop, the Strata wanted long-term rentals, no rentals. And they sold, the whole development sold out. To this day, it's still non-rental. And so it's, once the Strata reaches 50% and the Strata takes over from the developer, you know, the Strata can vote it. I mean, at Mare Landing, the Strata can vote the whole thing into rentals if it's approved by 2/3. I think, or no, 7/8 or something like that. But, yeah,
That's right.
It's a tough one.
Change over time. The strata councils, if they have problems with it, they would address it with their bylaws. They would come together. I mean, these are not that many units, not that many owners.
No.
Surely they can all agree how things should be restricted or not.
for sure.
Still a great project, and I hope it goes ahead. So thanks for.
We're ready, our project manager is here today, and we are ready. We are working with Austin Engineering on the subdivision. We're ready to keep moving. We've put a lot of effort and time into what we're doing. We have a great team that's in BC and in Alberta, and we just want to get shovels in the ground and get something started.
So the reason for our comments is that we are just a committee. This is gonna come to council. That's who actually is gonna vote on it. So we're just throwing the balls out in front of you so that you go, okay, don't be surprised if council actually asks some of these questions. So you should have the answers for them, one way or the other. Okay, that's what we're here for, is to make you aware of what council could ask for. So
We are aware.
that's why I've suggested it's better to see what you could negotiate with staff before it comes, because staff has this thing. Staff recommends. We don't always agree with what they recommend, but staff recommends. And it may come back here again before the council meeting, or it may not. So I don't think it needs to come back here again. We just wanted to make you aware of a lot of things that council is asking for out of everything that we do now. So,
Scott's been giving us
Okay.
lots and lots of discussions.
well, now you're here, that's two councilors for sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, 206 Martin Street. Recommendation that the Planning and Development Committee recommend that the District of Sicamous to a various development number 22-159 DVP to various Sicamous zoning bylaw number 101, 1993. I hate that. Section 6012C1 setbacks for single family dwelling, front setback from 6 to 4.79 for the eaves on a single family dwelling. Who has the
That's me.
Steffi?
So this is the ortho photo of the subject property. So we got a development variance permit application for the subject property located at 206 Martin Street. Property is designated as residential medium density within the official community plan, and it is zoned as R1 and 2, single and two family residential. So the applicant is going to build a single family dwelling. And he's requesting for a variance 6 meter to 4.79 meter extension of the eaves into the front setback. They do have an existing garage on the site. And yeah, so the applicant is not present today, but we can definitely take the comments from the committee to him. And the notifications would be sent according to the development application procedure bylaw to all the neighbors within 50 meters. And we also sent out referrals to internal departments as well. The applicant has submitted a rationale letter explaining why he needs that variance. I guess like shifting the property towards the back portion is not a viable option because that would congest the access to the existing garage. So yeah. And we do have a recommendation.
All right, comments, Brian?
Yeah, I think that, that these are very, they're not a really deep lot on Mark Street there. And also the intent of setbacks, and main intent is for between property owners. So this house starts on fire, so I'm gonna spread. So I think when you, especially an eave, if the eave is gonna encroach into the front yard setback, then I think it doesn't really impact that other property owners. And that particular property is facing dead south. So having a roof over top of it, I think is reasonable. I would definitely be supportive of that. It's the ones that are encroaching into, it's a normal sized lot in Sicamous, you got a decent quarter-acre lot, and you're designing a house and you're trying to go into the setbacks when you're affecting other property owners. I think that's a different story than this. So
I'm
you're
saying,
across the street, so.
yeah, I'm got no problem.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's just the eaves. We did that up on Bayview on some house up there so that it looked like a trailer, basically. And this is the same thing here. It's not that he's asking to move the footings ahead or the foundation ahead, so I don't have an issue with it. So I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor of supporting this for the council? Okay, carried. It's good to go. Pre-application lot 5 Hemlock South. Pardon me, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a pre-application meeting for lot 25. We didn't get like actual plans of like the site plan. But this is the approximate location of the site. And the owner is present today with us to give a presentation. He has submitted this site plan and it shows that this would require a variance from the sites. So this is zoned as R1 and 2, single and 2 family residential, which requires side setback a sum of 5 meter with no dimension less than 2 meter. So this has 1.2 and 1.7. So the applicant or the owner wanted to make sure that this is a good option to go ahead before making an application. So wanted to talk with the committee to know the possibility, their comments, etc.
So I'll be the first to comment, and I looked up the not yet passed zoning bylaws, and the setbacks are 1.5 meters. It's on the interior sides, which that's what this is. I don't understand why he's got an offset like that. Doesn't matter. It's not built yet.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend that he gets it to the 1.5 on both sides. Because 1.2, he's gonna have to put up a firewall. It's gonna have to be non-combustible on that side. So we strongly, or I strongly suggest that 1.5 on both sides.
Yeah.
But I don't see an issue with it. Any other comments?
I think,
Yeah, it's just kind of exactly like the last thing, you know, when you're dealing with those side setbacks and you haven't designed it yet. And if the new zoning is gonna be 1.5, then he should vary it to 1.5.
On both sides.
I agree. And
Because he's got, if you do the math on it, he's got 1.2 on one side and 1.735 on the other side. He's almost 1.5 on both sides. So just shift it over so he's 1.5. Because it's not built yet. So that's the one thing that this committee made a comment about a number of times is that if it isn't built yet, then they can conform to what I mean, we're not saying the 3 and 2, which is 5. We're saying their zoning bylaws get passed before the applicant comes in, but I don't think so.
so the applicant, the proponent is present online. Hey, Roger. We cannot hear you.
Can't hear what you're saying, sir.
Okay, so I can take the comments back to the applicant.
Yeah.
Proponent, and then we can sit.
You could hear someone else when they were online, so I think
Yeah.
we're on our end.
It's either on mute or whatever. All right, so if there's no other comments, then we'll move along. If he wished to, he could phone somebody in here
Okay.
while he's still online. I'm not giving him my number, but. So if he wants to call back, we can.
Looks like he maybe is trying to enter the room again from.
Is he talking?
It doesn't show that he's muted, so he's something at his end.
Okay, sorry, Roger, we can't hear you, but the committee has said they'd like to see you meet the existing or the proposed zoning bylaw, so 1.5 meters on each side. So I think if you move the house 50 centimeters to the south, you should meet it. Steffi will be in touch.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so pre-application meeting 517 Main Street, Paradise Motel. Who's got that?
It's
Bobby.
Bob Cooch. He has his own presentation, right?
So this is just a discussion again.
Right.
We have any? Oh, there we go. Figures, apps and drawing.
Councillor Moms and PDC committee. Thanks for putting us on the agenda. We're actually here quite early in the process. Our development is, the development process is going to initiate in about 4 months. But we wanted the PDC to understand the philosophy behind the development of this property. And Mr. Mohan and his wife, Rakesh and Karen Mohan, send their regrets. They wanted to be here as well. They're traveling back from Langley. And because it's so early in the process, as usual, I think quite a few of you have seen my presentations before. I just wanted to keep it fairly light and a bit of an overview. The Paradise Motel is located at 517 Main Street, as you know. Corner of Paradise and Main. Whoops, we'll try this way. The property itself is zoned right now C1 commercial town center. The OCP is for gateway. We're not quite sure what that looks like yet. The C1 setbacks are what we're working with, or we will be working with. Right now, there's 2 exits and entries, 2 off of Main and 1 off of Paradise. It's all as-built conforming. You can see the area of the property there. We're 233,000 square feet, 5.35 acres, 2.166 acres. Puts us at a density, capacity density of over 200. The development model that we're working with, Mr. Mohan and his associates, I've had a chance to meet with them. He's got developing partners in Kelowna and in Langley. The emphasis for developing this property is coming from them. Mr. Mohan is in the process. He's just coming back from Langley right now. We're looking at a phased financing and a phased return on investment on this property. The vision in the market and trending is being watched closely because of the next 3 or 4 years. We're wanting to see what happens within Sycamoose. And multifunctional is really the goal for it, of course. So we look at a blended commercial, residential, and the ultimate goal is a hotel site because of the location and the opportunity. When we took a quick look at a development bubble, we realized that there was potential for income on Main Street with the multi-use building, hotel site situated at the back, and a multi-use building off of Paradise. Development bubbles we use quite often, but mainly it is so we can start figuring out the magnitude of the cost of a project. Right now, development costs are going through crazy through the roof. That's what forces us into a phase situation. When we look at income drivers on this property, Sycamoose is maybe not quite ready for a hotel, but absolutely ready for some of the improvements that we could see with multi-use on Main Street. The development challenges on this property are that the sight lines, and it's a great corner property. We don't control the corner of the property, but what we can do is utilizing the sight lines, we can complement whatever happens on that corner when it eventually gets developed. And you can see here, what we've done is because we do not control that, our focus is strictly on these 3 sight lines. And in order to incorporate those sight lines, we actually have a good good view of off the highway for a higher building. But coming in, as you know, this is a key piece of property when you enter into the town off of Main Street. You've got parking at across with the school, and then driving in from 97 south, heading into Sycamoose. Of course, you're coming into that area as well. The corner piece of property, a project could really complement that piece when it does get to development. But we're not there yet. Haven't even entered into discussion on that, like I say. Although this is origination and I'm kind of laying out, you know, where we want to head with this. There is an ask at the end, but I'll get to that. The big picture of something like this could be a 5-story hotel in the back. You can see where I tried to capture the focal point. We're looking at 120 to 150 parking stalls will be required. You can probably look at a couple of 3-story buildings there. And basically CRU main double loaded corridor, maybe you know, 12 apartments for second and third floor. The one on Main Street, we would probably capture housing, a penthouse for Mr. Mohan and his wife. They're currently living in the front end of the Paradise Motel. The pool, when you drive in, and one of the things that we were discussing, one of his partners, the developer of Kelowna, wanted to see the focus. We drive in that there's a 2-story glass swimming pool and slide. It sort of captures you know, it captures the tourist attraction immediately. The 2 entries, we'd eliminate 2 entries off Main and focus on 1 and off of Main and 1 off of Paradise. Again, our focal lines lead us, and depending on what the corner property develops as, like I say, it can complement and sort of step back up to the 5-story building at the back. A little bit of market research, we realized that there's potentially room for a 75-unit hotel with full amenity. But the big picture is vision, and vision without a lot of hard work is just hallucination. We start with the big picture for a very good reason. Where's my button? Oh, that way. Sorry. There we go. What I call a phase 3, because we developed into this process. You can see where we've maintained the focal point, and we're taking a hard look at building number 1 on Main Street and building number 2 on Paradise. To get to that phase 3, we're considering a phase 2. The phase 2 development, and this is a development process that we'll be entering into in the fall, is our building number 1. And that building is going to be a 3-story, like I say, with commercial on the ground floor, CRU units that will maintain lease up. I'm not sure how we're going to stratify, if it'll be apartments for sale or apartments for occupation through rental. That model will not be decided until we go through the development process. And then the pool, of course, as well, and the accommodation, the housing for the Mohan family on the roof. And you also see I snuck in some RVs there. Phase 1 and what we'd like to get going immediately on a short-term use, temporary use permit is a dozen long stall RVs off of Paradise. We're going to refocus the entry there and have some type of entry treatment that you can see. And there's also 6 smaller units as well, RV campsite units. Oops. The development timeline, phase 1, the RV sites will be applying immediately this month for short-term use permit. The phase 1 laundry, and I did not mention that. There's an existing structure, and in the bottom, middle bottom there, you can see where there's a new laundry. We're proposing to put in, it's a conforming use, proposing to put in a laundry facility, renovating that existing structure and piggybacking the services and the infrastructure with the suites, the existing building right now. The development timeline again, phase one, the RV sites, we'd like to see incorporate those right away. Phase one laundry, again, right away. Design development, we're going to begin in earnest on building number one in September of this year. The DP application, we can see that going in as quickly as a year from now. And once we get through that, the architecture and engineering is going to be coming out of jointly out of Kelowna and out of Langley. These are very well schooled and disciplined architects and engineers. They're working on it right now. Mr. Mohan's partner is building a 12-story mixed-use building in Kelowna. And he's coming up on Sunday to take a look at this site. But we're giving that this winter and this year for that design development process. And then we could see phase two works, the building of that first multi-use building on Main Street fairly quickly as well, and perhaps as early as July 2024. Today's phase, RV sites, 3-year temporary use permit, electrical and water only. There'll be no sewer, no concrete pads. This is short-term use only. This site will be repurposed. The laundry, it's a conforming use. We need a renovation permit for the existing building, and we'll be applying for that building permit this month. These are pre-development permit requests, and this is where we need your assistance. The 3-year temporary for RV sites and the building permit for laundry. We'd like to get that initiated right away and available to the public as soon as possible. Like I say, the DP process will begin in September. We need your support for success. I always like to throw those fun ones in.
Go ahead, Deb.
Hang on.
Laundry, Rob, is there any possibility that you guys could incorporate a pay for use laundromat as part of that facility? We need one. We've got nothing in
That's
town.
what that would be.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if it was a laundry for your hotel. So that would be like a laundromat. Okay, good. Okay,
That'd be a public, and thanks for pointing that out. And
thank you.
as we move ahead, I'll put that on there. So again, like I say, vision without work is hallucination. But vision, if you can vision a 5-story hotel, a footprint about 60,000 feet works well here. Those two units are between the building number 1 and building number 2 at 10,000 and 12,000. We like, and especially with that 3-story model, it's although construction costs have gone crazy, it's the type of thing that can be financed, and there can be return on investment relatively quickly with those. Again, it complements what's happening or what will happen on the corner property with a different owner. But what it does is it sort of ties in that whole piece of property. So the vision, in order to get to that, again, we need a first step. First step is going to be application for short-term use on RV pads. The income drivers are the existing Paradise Motel. I don't know if anybody's been, well, I know you've been past it, but Mr. Mohan has put an incredible amount of money and effort into that and cleaning that up. And it's ready to go. The laundry is an existing structure that's been emptied and painted, and we're going to be putting in for a DP for that. That's an income driver. The other income driver, and you got to remember that the development of a piece of property is very high risk. The money that's coming in for this is being brought in through Mr. Mohan's associates and relatives. And they're taking a look at Sicamous and going, look at let's maximize the efficiency of the income on this piece of property that we just bought that we're going to clean up before we start taking steps boldly to go and develop a hotel or something like that. The RV component is critical for lots of reasons to the property, but it's mostly, I think, critical to show that the district of Sicamous is willing to cooperate with the developer in getting to where they need to. I remind you, it's a three-year temporary use. You do control what happens after 3 years with that. piece of property. The very first development that we'll be working on again is going to be based on costing. When I put up a dollar sign, that doesn't necessarily mean dollars in, it means dollars out. And we're putting money into this property. Mr. Mohan is doing a substantial effort on it. That first development can be and will be real on Main Street, and it could be a really important entrance into the town. So today, I'm basically saying I need your support on a 3-year temporary use permit for RVs. I need a renovation building permit for laundry facility, public use. Thanks, Deb. And we need to support in the very, very near future on a development permit that we'll be looking at next year. I was like this one too. So questions, before we do, I have to mention that I got that age where I have hearing aids and I didn't bring my hearing aid. So I can't really hear very much. What'd you say?
No.
But if you have any questions, you just have to yell at me.
I have a couple of comments, Rob. So I don't know where it is, but the district of Sycamore paid like 30 grand to have a hotel study done. And we handed out to just about everybody. So I don't know why you haven't got a copy of it. I think it states that we have a requirement for 236 hotel rooms. I'm pretty sure it's around here someplace. It might not be 200, but it's over 200 rooms. So we did that on the basis that if somebody wanted to do a hotel, here's a study that's already done that you could take to a financial institution and say, this study was done and states this. That's the first one. Now, the RV sites with water and power. And no septic.
No septic necessary, it's temporary.
Yeah.
That's
Are you gonna put in one sanitary dump someplace so that all those people get, because the only one we have in town that's actually public is not at the Shell. We only have one at the Shell, dump.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems, you know, the next one is Canadian Tire in Salmon Arm. But this is short-term rentals only, not interested in anything long-term. And so the sewage is going to become a problem of the renter, you know, the tourists. You know, they might have to take those out and take them out to the Shell or to Salmon Arm.
Okay.
But yeah, Councillor Malms, the focus on the RV pads is, again, like I say, we just want to show an income driver to the stakeholders that complements the activity of the town, and something that doesn't impact or cost for, because we are going to change that and repurpose that into a building.
Yeah. Good.
Also on the study, I did a fair amount of research and reading, and we kind of like the model of 75 to 85 hotel units. Parking, it becomes an issue, of course, as you know. The model that they're doing, the building that they're doing in Kelowna right now is quite unique, and that's a wrapped around retail, and then parking not below, it's below under the building, but it's not below grade. And it's a really efficient parking use. With this model, they're probably talking with the architect, we're probably looking at about 150 parking sites required with the 3 buildings and a 75 to 85 unit hotel. But that, yeah, there's some good studies out there that were actually commissioned through the district.
Right.
So just to clarify, Rob, with the development permit application, would there be any info on that first building before the issuance of the temporary use permit for the?
No, what I'm asking is the issuance of the temporary use
First, and then before they get to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
And what, yeah, I don't know, that seems.
It's what I say is that's where the support needs to fall into line. Brian, it's we can't enter into the DP process and spend money on architecture and engineering and that type of thing and start engaging in detailed work on that building financially until we see how this summer, we see some income drivers off of the property.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, renderings are a good way to demonstrate what you're looking at as well. So then that's not as much, but I get what you're saying. It was just a question. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but right now and then the laundromat's another one. A fair amount of money, including after the purchase of the property, has gone in. The stakeholders met, and I was a privy to that meeting. And they just said, look, let's just take this step at a time. And the first step is let's maximize the efficiency of the income on that property. And then let's look at adding a building, and let's look at adding a second building. And then, after that, we can look at this hotel and maybe work together with the owner of the corner lot, just so we get those sight lines and everything's complementary. It's a very powerful piece of property. They're very powerful two pieces of property. But initially, we need to see some income, our side income.
Comments, Gord?
Yes, Gordon.
Yeah, through the chair, I think it's a great idea, and I like the phased approach. I mean, when we did Mare Landing, the same thing, we did it in a phased approach, and we had cash flow with the houseboats just to help cash flow it around. And I mean, I know, there's not a lot of sites, but it'll be good for the community. Just a question for Scott. That property originally had temporary use permits for camping. Has any of those, they've all expired or
So I believe they've expired. I wasn't even aware of them. I know the previous owner had provided some assurance that camping would be supported on that property. Rakesh and his wife have been like wonderful to work with. The laundry and just the work they're doing in the motel, and just trying to get somewhere. So Sarah and I have asked, like, what's your final vision for the property?
Yeah.
When they first floated the idea of RVs on Main Street, it doesn't really meet with the vision of the official community plan. But I think, if that's what needs to occur to get to the final vision, I think could be something that works for community. And it also provides that short-term camping need in the community as well. With a 3-year temporary use permit, council can put some conditions on it and consider it again in 3 years. One thing that Rob will need to work on is the servicing. It's going to be interesting to see how the servicing is going to work on the property, but probably starting now, we give them a lot of information. Probably kind of work on the servicing aspects of it, and work towards a development permit, for the laundry and the camping, temporary use permit, and then look at the long-term vision for the property.
Okay, Gord.
Thanks, Scott. I just short notice of BC Hydro. They're like a year out. So if you don't have enough hydro on property, make the application right away. Because it's unbelievable working with them.
Yeah, get your billion volt box in the ground now. Okay, go ahead.
I have to ask his permission whether or not I can speak. Thank to the chair. No, I think, thanks for the presentation, Rob. And what it could add is the vibrancy to the downtown core. And if we were to get more activity, I totally support what you're trying to do here. And I think it's going to be an asset. So long-term and short-term. So just have to work out the details with Scott. Yeah, but I fully support it.
Yeah, so same for me. I don't see an issue with a temporary use permit for the camp, and they look like they're going to be big enough for my truck and trailer, which is big. So 68 feet long. So there's lots of those units around, and they are the people that show up here, and if they stay for 3 or 4 days, like I could basically dry camp for a week. Totally self-contained. So those are the people that show up, go to the community, use the restaurant, spend some money. So that's a good thing. And the laundromat, I think that they should already have the
Yeah.
development permit done for that, because there isn't one in town. There used to be one at the car wash, truck wash, and they've closed it. I don't know if the new owner plans on opening again, but I didn't hear anything towards that end. But there was a lot of people that used that one. That was the only one in town. So anybody that's using laundry facilities now is going to Salmon Arm.
Yep, or Enderby started going.
Yeah, so that's a great thing. So I don't know if they're asking for any recommendation from this committee. I'd say the temporary use permit and the laundromat should be a no-brainer. That's my opinion.
Just to add to that, Councillor Malms, the laundromat, the building number 2 would house a brand new laundromat, a larger facility. The one we are proposing right now under the temporary use, it would be it's basically 4 washing machines and 4 dryers that would operate it, available to the public. But there's really a need for something substantial in Sick Moose, and the need's growing. So that would be a component of the of building number 2. And yeah, and also it was important for Mr. Mohan and his associates for the Planning and Development Committee to understand the larger picture, and not just to come in and just go for a temporary use on it would be. They made it very clear to me that it is temporary, and that control still remains with the PDC and the council. But it was very important to them for everyone to understand that it has to be phased financially in the economics of our times, and to develop a hotel site is a long, arduous process, and that these 2 buildings, this mixed-use building, one on Main and one on Paradise, really are the keys to taking that big step.
And still leaving the existing motel in place until such time that you decide to develop them.
Yeah.
So it's a great thing. I can't comment on your forecast is for 2023, 2024. I might not be here.
Well, yeah, the crystal ball thing doesn't work for anybody.
No, so,
By the way.
but they hear it now today for the temporary use for camping and the renovation to have a 4-and-4 laundromat. I support it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Does all of this committee support that? So basically, we're supporting your request, but now you have to submit the paperwork and then it has to come through council. So that would be.
I'll work directly with Scott then on getting those applications in.
It's a development permit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks.
Okay, Rob. All right. Now, next, a temporary use permit, 22169 PUP Yarmaloy Group. And we have a site map, but I think there was more information given to staff than just this site map, or did you not have that?
No, I think this is the only information I've been provided with. I have been in touch with John. Is that John back there? Yeah. So I've been in touch with John and just some more information, looking for the number of sites, the period of time, is it seasonal? How they're going to be serviced, screening and fencing, vegetation, and we need to work towards a business license. But they've identified the whole property for for camping. And if you just move one more forward, I just put the zoning over top. So in the highway commercial, a temporary use permit wouldn't be necessary because campsite is permitted. It would just be for the other properties. The yellow is large holdings, and then the C1 properties are town center commercial, where so on large holdings and C1 campgrounds aren't permitted. So they could move forward with a development permit right now for the highway commercial property for camping, but the other ones would require that temporary use permit.
Okay, so I'd just like to comment on this, that there was capping on that HC, the highway commercial, in the past, previous to the purchaser, the current owner. I think there are some campsites that were set up a long time ago over behind Blondie's and through that area. And I'm glad to see Mike here for Red's Rental because he has rental for boat storage or parking or whatever. And so some of the questions that have been flying around in council and staff is that we need the camping. So just as the previous proponent wanted a temporary use permit, like this town used to have a lot of campsites and we have hardly any anymore. So they attract some people, those people show up and possibly they have a look. And after they have a look, they might actually drop their wallet and buy something. And that's what we're looking for in the long term, as far as this group is concerned. So you also have existing campsites, some of them serviced on the one in yellow to the east, beside the hotel site, which is the one that's kind of orange. So can you explain how many campsites that you have currently on that property that are serviced existing and they've been used for some time? And the other question is can Mike talk about what he does there? And my question is that for staff and for Mike is that Mike, do you have a business license for that, or does your business license where you're at cover that, or do you have on a separate title? I'm just going, we'll let the start of the order and just go through. I just want to get a clearer picture of exactly everything that's.
To clarify, I did make a mistake on the application. It is actually meant to be for camping and parking.
Okay.
Aid with Mike and his business. We also have Brian here as well, who's also in management of 4x4, the site that seeing campsites on it.
Okay.
10 sites currently full serviced on that site.
That's the one in yellow, the first one to the east.
4x4 is on yellow. East, I guess, is the things. Yeah. Mike, you did.
Yeah, so when Shane purchased the property there, I came in and I have had it previously on my business license, because I have a parking lot on Main Street as well.
Yeah.
So I have added it, and then I have, of course, full insurance and everything else.
Yeah.
For all those lots, including 442 and Main Street. So it is, I think it's in the notes on my business license. It wasn't, because at first they originally wanted me to get a whole other business license, but then I talked about a couple other properties that have multiple land.
Yeah.
For under one business license, and then they said they were able to add it to my current one.
Okay. So. Any comments?
Mine's a parking, mine's not, yeah, it's just like on, like wheels and trailers.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, it's the same as the last one. Can't, a temporary use permit is a great thing because you can control how it works. As far as the it's the same deal. They can go in for a development permit on the highway commercial right away. And so that's the great thing about putting in a development permit is you show all your cards and open your kimono, as they say, and show what it's going to look like, how it's going to be done and everything. And I think that's great. It's not the idea, it's the follow through. And that's the part where you get to see now when you put in a development permit. So good news. And we do need camping, we need parking. It's all positive stuff. It's just the follow through.
Gord?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know if John wants to just point out with a pointer, what the the grand plan is. Like, can you point out where the campground spots will be, or, I don't know, are you there yet? I'm not sure. Maybe Shane's gonna do it. That's good, thanks.
Yeah, we've had a lot of these properties for a long time. Back when Jack Bowers owned these two big pieces, Mike had applied for, haven't applied, or yeah, he did apply, for camping and parking. Now, the camping stall, there was a big circle that's up there. You can see it on your old maps, and that was the campsite. So since then, we tried to, since I purchased the property, we tried to clean it up and clarify where Mike's operating and where he's not operating. So his parking is basically is going to be a fenced off type compound there. And we agreed, we wanted some upgrading, a little gravel in there. We've improved the driveways, the access to it. So we still don't have clarity on our zoning, and that's something that Scott has pointed out. I thought a year and a half ago, we agreed on the zoning for that, so I was surprised when John told me that still was not the case. There are parking stalls that are developed along the highway here, it's along the back here. And back in the day, Melissa didn't really enjoy dealing with campers, so there hasn't been a lot of utilization of that. Now, Brian's been looking after our 454 site and is willing to expand that to dealing with other people. I believe that we have a grandfather use, but just for clarity, we want to ask for temporary use for camping and parking for the entire site. So that's what brings us here today. Long term, this site will never be a strong enough financial driver to let it remain. That's so we do have some electrical that we've added to provide that, but it's definitely not going to be a full service. It's just going to be dry camping, dry parking.
Okay, thank you, Shane. We need camping. The community used to have a lot of camping in it. And again, I think it actually brings people in the community that don't really stop here. They have a look-see. They might want to be interested, purchase something, water, non-water, condo, apartment, whatever. So that helps us out overall. That site, like the highway commercial, you can do that there today. That's not, it's already allowed use on that property, but I think you would still need a permit. So a temporary use permit would cover the whole thing. So we're done with that. And the reason there was discussion about the overall zoning of that property, and I'm not sure whose staff, but we haven't adopted the zoning bylaws yet. So I'd have to go back and flip through our map to see what it is, but I think it was necessarily, wasn't it zoned C1 or C2? Doesn't our new commercial have quite a broad amount in it? And I think it's sometime that was the discussion, but if you're concerned about what that should be, we should actually be discussing it before this all goes to the public for the review, because we're going to start having the open houses. So whatever zoning you want to see on that, now's the time to actually get it done.
You know, I have to, Rob Cooch was working for us, the consultant, doing that. He had went through five phases of development. I don't know, Rob, do you mind speaking to that at all? You're not.
But just hold on a second. Just hold on a second. What do you got, Scott?
So we do have the submission that Rob made, and we try to reflect that in the zone. Have to look to be sure what the property zone now. But yeah, like I think, you know, the camping, as much information as you can get us on the camping, where it's going to be, and we can move forward with that. And I think we do have the bigger picture zoning plan as well that
Well, it's you know, it's a wide open space, basically. There's a tree dock area on that highway commercial part that there hadn't been previous camping. And we cleaned up that site, got rid of our brownfield hazard problems. Rob could tell you, you picking with that property, probably about 25 feet. And it was a liability from the point of view from our insurance agent. A little bit of a drainage problem, which is slowly getting corrected. So that the person made the submission.
Well, similar to Mr. Mohan property, when you have a holdings this large, and it's and you want to look at improving them or developing them, the first immediate thing you have to look at is income drivers that are realistic and at hand. And you know, it's fine to say, okay, we're gonna eventually build this, or we're gonna do that. But the reality is, in today's economy, it's what have we got there? Shane's put in some very nice RV units that, well, actually, the ones by Blondie's, they've been there for how long? Yesterday. Yesterday. Yesterday.
There's also Sandy, well, on the driveway.
It hooked up the sewer?
There's a lot of potential there for RV sites and use, and you know that the district of Sycamore is and for Mr. Yarmaloy, what it does is that it basically starts generating some revenue on the bare land. What it turns into is going to be who knows? You know, we got to get through this bylaw process. We got to get through the OCP. There's access issues, as you know, on all of this property. They're very awkward lots because of how narrow they are and the length that they are. They're highway commercial, but yet they don't have access off the highway. It goes on and on. It's quite a challenge for the Yarmaloy group. And to look at, you know, how can we service a need that's required in the district right today? And how can we do that with what we have in place and can quickly put into place? I think that's what the temporary use permit's about, is it not? It's just like, you know, how can we get this, how can we get some income?
Yeah.
And
Thanks, Bill. I know that there was a phased development thing that you had presented to the town, which I objected to the
Yeah.
phase.
Yeah.
Presented.
the phase development concept was because of the highway and no access here. We realized that in order to break these long lots, and this is basically a township, like CSRD, you know, what District of Sycamore inherited that. In order to break that, we envisioned that there was a crossroad, or that there was a division between Finlayson and access to these back lots. The reality is these lots are all accessed off of Finlayson Street, every one of them. So it doesn't matter how prime that property looks out of commercial. So our phases included developing, you know, the Finlayson face and depth there. And that's what Shane's doing right now, you know, with the motel, and then a couple of these bare lots. And I'm backwards too. A couple of the bare lots here where there can be some RV sites. But again, it was the essential, because of the cost of development, essential to look at a strategic phase plan. And that's what we implemented. And right now, the phase one is temporary use RV and get Mike some parking, get the district some parking, boats and trailers and that kind of stuff. And that's it. You know, like I said, the vision, it's a long way. It takes a lot of work to get to the vision, but and those drawings are available if somebody wants to see them, but
I think the district has seen them. I know they came to this council some time ago, and I'm pretty sure that was the story, that there was no access off the highway. So for right now, the zoning, I think for the most of that property was C1. Like that. So go ahead, Deb.
So this is kind of a question totally out of left field. To Mike is, with the OCP and downtown revitalization, I've always been a big fan of yours, but I've never been a big fan of the storage on Main Street. With what you're doing with Shane, is there the opportunity that you'll be able to get off of Main Street?
So I don't own that lot.
I know you don't own it, but it's,
And yeah, it was just kind of.
will you have enough storage with Shane that you won't need that Main Street?
Definitely, I don't wants to do something with the lot. 100% I can easily.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's just, yeah, the owner doesn't have any intention in the near future of doing anything with it, so.
No, exactly. But it's just if
Oh, yeah.
you were somewhere else, then maybe he would consider doing something else.
Oh, I.
Yeah.
I just, like I said, totally out of left field, but it's just storage on Main Street. It's kind of like, oh, man.
On a long-term plan, we might have to do, Mike around on that lot. Mike's a great tenant, and we don't want to lose him. what we see all the Edmonton perhaps developing out. And therefore that storage that we have, you see, we've only got wooden posts in there. We're, you know, reusing that and perhaps moving them on the site if we need to. Now, that could be, you know, that could be 3 years down the road, it could be, you know, 23 years down.
Scott,
Stephanie moves the slide forward, just considering the temporary use permit. So I guess what, you know, I'd like from the committee today is to just give some advice to John and Shane on kind of the temporary use conditions that you'd want to see, you know, within the permit. So the temporary use permit can address the use, location, the time frame, the form and character. I think I spelled character wrong, didn't look right. Screening services, reclamation, demobilization, and security. So, you know, I'm thinking about one of the other temporary use permits that's issued. You know, there's a time frame, and then after the time frame, there's a reclamation plan, and then there's security provided if that doesn't happen. I think the screening is something we've asked for on your property, on where you do the storage. It should be screened. But yeah, the use, location, the time frame are the important ones. So I think, yeah, this committee needs to give advice to staff and to the applicants on what conditions you want to see in the.
so because I worked with Deb, and I know that Deb and Shane get along like great. And so I don't have an issue with temporary use permit for the entire property for parking and camping. They can lay it out as they do and submit it to the district office as they see fit, because as you said, development is going to take some time. We're still waiting for MOTI on some discussions, which would greatly affect that piece of property. So, and they're not doing anything because they're busy on Highway 5. They're not looking at this at all. So they had committed to us to doing a study, but they haven't got there yet. So, but I think that it would be fantastic, as Evan's part of the Communities in Bloom, if John and Shane had a conversation with her about how for temporary, we could kind of give that little sex curb appeal, you know, so it's not a wooden fence and trailers that are sticking out there, and not put up a fence with flats and flower boxes or something. You know, she's got sunflower seeds.
Look at Sheena doing it.
On that, you know, land lake, just to get it cleaned up, it had been unkept for quite some time.
Yeah.
All the uses that we're asking for camping, today, I believe that they're grandfathered. But it's a matter of getting a temporary, permit just to keep things consistent along that strip.
Yeah.
And I was quite shocked when John came to me, and that only hadn't been cleaned up. Rob submitted a land use, land use description. You know, and I forget what the zone, we call that the whole strip one particular.
And Shane, just to reiterate, we haven't adopted the new zoning bylaw, so what you're looking at is still the old zoning bylaw. I'm pretty sure that the new zoning bylaw map might have something different on it. I don't have it handy. Do we have access to the new zoning bylaw, Stephanie, where it shows the map of what that property actually is? But it's not chopped up like that.
Yeah, no, I believe that Rob's plan is adopted. And it just hasn't been in.
Yeah, well, till we go through the zoning process of the open public hearings, and it's going to be September before it gets adopted. But then you're going to need a temporary use permit to do what you want to do, because the only property that will allow you to do it without coming and visiting us is the highway commercial one. That highway commercial, you could already do the camping and the parking on it.
No, I understand the point, but
25th.
there's such a thing as grandfather use.
I don't think that exists, honestly.
Yeah.
I know when I do docks on the water, the guy that's got the dock in the water thinks it's grandfathered until it falls apart and rots. That's not the case. He has to renew it every 10 years. He has to keep it up to snuff. And if you had that designated as a campground and it was a campground, then then yes, it doesn't, it's not shown as a campground in any of the maps that I've looked at. So that's what we're trying to do is, so what's the new zoning bylaw got for that?
So the new zoning, I think is C1 and C2. And then, so almost the same, and it's actually exactly the same with the large holdings. At first reading, we actually had those large holdings designated as commercial, but that was some of the ones that MOTI said they wouldn't support the new zoning bylaw until there's a traffic impact study for those properties. So we put them back to large holdings.
Okay, so did you get that? MOTI is saying they won't accept it until, and they're the holdup for our whole zoning bylaws right now.
I'm quite interested in MOTI has, that influence on that, so that's gonna be a challenge for
So
you.
it's not that we're not trying, Shane.
Yeah.
We're kicking the doors down, but we got resistance, and it's not from you and it's not from MOTI. Like, you should see the list that MOTI sent back.
That because the whole zoning process takes so long. That's why we're going with temporary use. We get 3 years temporary use on all the property, which would be consistent. So we make a consistent plan for the whole section of property. Use it consistently at least the next 3 years. Everyone knows how long it's going to take for this to actually come into place.
Yeah, we actually,
Years process at this point. So.
Yeah.
MOTI had actually committed in November to have a highway access corridor use thing done up to Raba by March of this year. I don't even think they put a pencil on the paper yet. So that's what we understand. There's been a couple meetings and they haven't proceeded at all yet. So their story is they're dealing with the floods and washouts of roads on the Coke and between there up Highway 8. So they're not even looking. They had no money in the budget is what they said basically, isn't it?
They haven't said they don't have the money.
Oh,
It certainly hasn't happened.
certainly hasn't happened, but it is in the work. Go ahead, Rob.
You can see with that zoning and how problematic it is for a landowner. I mean, those ground strips are rural residential. And they're right on Phillipson and the highway. And, they're substantial size. So when we were working with trying to establish some efficiencies in lot size, it became clear that Phillipson was needing to be built up as a second Main Street. And that there needed to be commercial and there needed to be some type of mixed blended, mixed use, I think we went for Shane on there. And then at the backside, you could put parking and you could, long-term parking. You could have access off Phillipson to the backside, but the backside didn't need to, it was a totally different function. But we had challenges with this zoning because of those darker brown strips there, which is rural residential. And if we're in the town core here.
That was reflected by the consultant, I can't remember his name, that was hired to look at the zoning and the development of the.
Our Colin.
This is quite contrary to this.
But Scott did say earlier that we tried to change it. And MOTI said till they did a highway traffic impact study. That it's gonna stay that way even in our new zoning bylaws. That's the way it's drawn up now.
Right.
So
A permitted use for large holdings would be like a chicken farm.
well, you give a temporary use permit over even the brown zone. Does that?
You can get a temporary use permit. Ministry of Transportation wouldn't need to approve it necessarily, so.
So I'll just ask the question, I don't know whether it's prudent or not, but to help with any future development. Should we extend that temporary use permit to the blue shops that are over there?
Blue.
Well, the old highways yard, basically. You got one country residential lot in the middle of
Yes.
this.
No, it's,
You don't want it over
I
there?
just don't see putting parking in there and we don't see,
Okay, so
how
That was just a quick, so you've highlighted the area that you'd like to see in the temporary use permit. Personally, I don't have an issue with it.
I need to see how many sites, where they're gonna go, how they're serviced.
That's a really good, that's a really good. You need a map, you do like that list. The use, the location, the time frame, but like put it together like a proper application. And there's no way that the council or this committee could even make it, like, we're talking, the idea about having the road in between those big lots is a great idea, and it makes perfect sense, Rob. When you first put together your presentation, I remember it completely, how that road split up those two properties so you can actually use it. It was all great, but it's all nothing unless it's put in a proper proposal and proper schematics and everything, exactly how you're gonna do it. Like you say, the screening, everything. How the council couldn't make a decision on that. Just say, oh yeah, go camp, just start a campground. You need a lot more information. But yeah, it's the same deal as the other proposal. We need camping, we need parking, but what does it look like?
So I guess to complete the application, then, as you saw with the one for the Paradise Motel, they laid out where the camping was gonna be in a boat, and it's got some services, or it's dry camping. That if you come back with a map of this, basically showing this is parking, this is where the camping is proposed to be, these are the things, although like you're saying, it's dry, they're not even offered water or sewer. It's totally dry, a lot of it. So if you just lay it out so that it can be presented where you think it's gonna be, then I don't see an issue with it, because we need the camping.
Well, I just recently got out of the campground business in Canada. And, we suspect that the lots would be about 30 feet wide, where those ones were 20 feet wide, because the units have changed. And when it comes to a big old field like that, that's traveled up, they'll just pull up to wherever they want, with some direction from Brian himself. So in the case of 454, we do have a designated street that are there, and we can try and put them in. And then, amongst the trees where they were camping on 422, we've decreased the size of the fire pit. We've graveled off a little bit. We've taken away one of the driveways. Just trying to clean up that site where the trees are. They are, you're not going to knock them down. So there might be an opportunity there to maybe put on some roads. Campsites. It makes it difficult. There's no money in that campground. I've known that for 40 years.
Gordon?
Yeah, just through the chair, maybe Scott, can you refresh our memory on a temporary use permit? Is it 3 years? Or
It's 3 years and it can be renewed for 3 years. Council can issue it for 1 day, 6 months, however long they like.
yeah, 3 years, yeah.
You must have applied for a permit for 454 if you've got a running campground there. So
It was existing when we
bought that for 20, 30 years.
yeah. Okay, because there's I know that's, so yeah, I don't know. I think all that list of exactly what the specifications are.
Any other comments? So who's gonna,
Maybe I'll touch base with John and we'll go from there. I should come and see Brian too, and we'll do that.
But on Shane's point about, like this, and kind of coming back to what Rob was saying too, in terms of phasing. This is a big blank canvas. It's just, like trying to get an agreement in principle, roughly map out where things are and recognize that it could change. Like, I don't think we can be too restrictive on this. I think we need to have the broad strokes, but like, I think it's kind of a work in progress.
I somewhat agree, and laying out where your sites are gonna be when you're putting in water and power. That I say you're pretty gonna have to do, because you're putting in a service. But if you're not putting any services in, like, when you go to campsites, there are some campgrounds that have sites that are specific, and then they have what they call the family field, which they just circle the wagons and there's no services there. You park, you see fit to suit your group, and the next family parks however they see fit in the group, because I remember when we were a kid, there used to be like 10 relatives of my mother's, and we showed up at a campground, always trying to get campsites sided across the road from one another, so you kind of had that. So I'm not sure, if you don't have any services, how, you could draw some lines on the page, like.
I would say that the temporary use permit should contain, Scott's concern. If you are going to provide, it's kind of, we may look at doing a section or fence line or something like that and provide services, but if we are, it should be to the approval of the development officer. So, more than willing to comply with that right now. It's like that Santa Claus thing, people, sure, that people use our thing for parking. Folks want to park all over the place. Just want to get across that highway. And I think it's, I think it's, a good intent on the property, good steward of that property, maybe not so much. But we're talking with Percussion Point, for instance, and touring that, it's amazing the money that they put into that place. I estimate they paid $1.3 million and probably put 700. That guy's got a lot of money in the game,
Yeah.
Quite impressive. Total support for that development too. He's wanting to work with us. Welcome member to this community. Sure.
Great.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So Scott, you'll set up something with John, maybe tomorrow or Friday or whatever fits, to put some lines on a paper. Just, I've been over there, I can see about where the one is that's got services. In fact, if you look at the Google Earth thing or our map, you can actually see where those sites are on that one lot. The rest of it.
With the circular.
Yeah.
Sites used, probably wouldn't really promote layout.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Is it possible for us to have a 2-second break to
Okay, I'm gonna say that we take a 5-minute break. You can
have a sandwich and have a pee? I just need to.
And
Thank you. How are you?
bathroom breaks. Reconvene in 5 minutes.
I'm on week 2 now, so yeah, and this is so interesting to be able to sit in on it. Kind of what you guys do. Interesting to me.
What do you think?
Yeah, me too. No, it's been really interesting. I'm learning a lot, like every single day. But
Such a good thought.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then I'm just kind of assisting this portion or this department of the district. I'm here to do communication stuff, so not as much into like the planning, but just assisting this team as I can with their communications.
But that was why I wanted,
I'll just like local government operates, so it's good insight.
And you don't even like.
Doug Moore.
See ya.
So that's a conversation that we can have with Mike. If you're gonna have.
Right.
That's why I asked about it. Good idea.
Still behind the scenes. I
Yeah.
like it.
Have all
They're doing really well. Yeah, my dad was out here last weekend.
He's
Headed home
not
Tuesday, and my mom and my grandparents are out right now, but they're just crazy. They're almost empty nesters. My youngest brother just graduated. So they're kind of moving into a new phase of life. Ryder's sprung from the school system in Calgary, so he's going down south.
Each property has that.
At a junior college.
That should be a couple.
Easy. Yeah, so he's gonna be just outside of Arizona. No, not just outside of Arizona, just outside of at Chandler Gilbert Community College. So mostly they don't play ball. Also go to school, though. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. Yeah, how have you been doing? What's-
If he'd had you.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
It's hard to tell when he's.
What you asking? You don't get it.
But no, that was.
Yeah, those are big projects.
Yeah, it's probably a.
Do that most.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good guy.
I think she.
Yeah, not since Drake was out, that's the one I babysit him. So, yeah, that's right, the last time that I was around there, and then, yeah, exactly. So I grew up kind of over at that house, and then when they moved up there, there were a couple years that I ended up going around, but then I think my dad was out of town for those 4 years, and then I haven't been up since, but he's got a new shop there. Yeah.
It's not like.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what an operation. Very cool.
Just busy. Great, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
10 years ago,
There you go.
Napkin.
That's really the bridge there. Oh. Oh, that's. Right. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, pretty cool.
Trying to get the Armaway thing sorted out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm Fields, have some conflict.
Because
Because he's friends with
he's
Shane.
sleeping with Shane.
But you come for the. Boat.
Hmm?
It was supposed to be Mexican.
Oh,
Because they're right next door. Maybe you should go.
I like that idea of RVs out there. I like the idea on the end of Main Street. It's just gonna bring people.
Start doing shit. And it'll work itself out. Start doing shit. I'm all.
End of the day, we have RVs in town. They're gonna be buying groceries and roaming around and maybe going in and taking a look at real estate. We've been bouncing this around forever. Let's make it happen.
If you stymie Shane too much, end up with what we've got there. Let's start doing shit.
That's kicked in. Perfect.
Well, we sure know how to empty a room.
Shit. I'm getting electric. You tried to call.
It had muted us when we took our break.
Gonna reconvene the planning and development committee meeting at 12:04. Next on the agenda is what do we, 22-186 ALC 1760 Transcanada Highway. It's to discuss for a brewery use of this as a distillery. And I just have to ask a question before we even start. Clarification. Is this property not the same people that came in here with tears in their eyes about access to the Transcanada Highway and how unsafe it was?
It's their neighbor.
Oh, it's their neighbor. Okay.
So it's a good question. I think something we'll have to figure out as they go down the road of access and coming up with agreement with Ministry of Transportation, but this is an application to the Land Commission for a non-farm use. So yeah, I think all these three properties, 1754 and 1750, they all get access off what was Wisdom Road and is now their driveway. The properties, I think it's Zone Large Holdings, it's in the rural designation. See the layout of the property, so there's a house that exists now and then an existing barn, and they want to build another unit right next to that. That would be the distillery and a tasting room and things like that. They're proposing to grow a lot of the corn and rye on their property. They have a lot of fruit trees and things on the property right now, and they want to continue that use, and I think they fenced a large portion of the property as well. So this is the layout with the proposed distillery. And it's interesting. I've been like this, we just get notified that we received an application and then we go from there. So that I've just started the conversations with the owner. Don't think he's online because he's out of town. But yeah, just trying to work out what exactly he's doing, his time frame. Because if you were to provide, if you had 50% of the inputs, the distillery, so 50% of like the rye and the corn came from the property and he processed it, turned it into something on his property, you can actually have some industrial use of the property. There is limitations on the percentage of the property to be used. I think 10 acres, you can use 5%. So as long as his commercial industrial operation wasn't greater than 5% of the property, I don't know if he needs to have a non-farm use.
You're saying the Land Commission, that's the Land Commission's rules.
That's
ALC.
rules. So I'm still trying to work out what his time frame is and how he wants to expand. It sounds like maybe he wants to eventually get so big that he needs to get inputs from off the property. So that's why he's made the application. So I hope to have some more information as we move through the process. I thought it was important to bring it to the committee, if possible though. Just to have a recommendation, so when we can try and get it to council in a timely manner. Is there any more drawings? Is that it?
Could you just stay on that slide for a minute?
Back.
Go back to the one where he's had sketched in, the one you were just on.
This one,
No, the had sketched one,
this one.
that one. It appears to me that he's gonna try and poke an access out on the Transcanada Highway.
That's what,
Or is that not what it looks like?
so that probably all of that front, like all their properties front on the Transcanada Highway, like that Wisdom Road is probably what he's showing on the map, but it's all Transcanada right away.
Okay, so we have a distiller in town here just down the street. And his access is not limited in any way, shape or form, but he wants to have a tasting and a viewing and a farm and people coming and going off of a road that the neighbors 3 doors down were in here with tears in their eyes about trying to get out on there. Like if you're going east and you try to turn onto that road, or sorry, if you're going west and try to turn onto that road, it's a bad corner. So we had the discussion a little bit about what they were hearing. What did the staff come up with exactly about? Because that's what one of the questions was, is who owns that road? Does the road exist? Was it highway was built that it gets severed off and made as their own like, private driveway? So who's responsible?
Right now, it's Transcanada right away. There's no title for the road, but Wisdom Road doesn't exist except, you know, as a road. I believe the Ministry of Transportation has said they would need to apply for any commercial use, definitely. And I think the advice now to the owners as residents is to apply for an agreement to use that access.
Okay. Sarah, you had a comment?
Sorry, I had heard some of the details from Jeremy. So Jeremy had talked to Modi about it. So there is a driveway access agreement for those 3 properties, but it's just for their residences. So that agreement doesn't cover off any of the farm related businesses that have started developing on there. So they need new tenants
With who?
with MOTI.
Okay. So then, as far as this committee goes, that there's nothing here for us until they do the application to MOTI to find out what's gonna happen with their access. Is that correct?
I think the advice we're looking for right now is how do you feel about this as far as farm use goes? The land commission said like their mandate is how does this improve agriculture? Perhaps this committee or council's advice to the land commission is how this impacts agriculture in Sycamoose. So maybe I think that's important. The access is important and maybe give some advice as far as the access goes, but I think today mostly we want to know how does this impact agriculture in Sycamoose?
My personal opinion, I mean, I got 25 acres. The mayor has 70 or 80 acres. And I considered doing other things on there. The Dutchman Dairy is making ice cream and milk and cheese and related to the farm. And doing that with agricultural land is not allowed. And yes, if they want to try and do it, fill your boots. Like, you know, I'm actually growing sugarcane, 0.2 of an acre of sugarcane for the After Dark distillery. I put it in so he could see how much he produces off an acre and know how much land he's going to need to make rum, however much rum he's going to make. I don't know. But I just said, you know what, I got no problem. I got a little bit of field left. I'll put it in. So a farm is a commercial entity to start with, because you're either harvesting corn or hay or something, and you're gonna you consume it on the property, but whatever you consume on the property is gonna be fed to something that's gonna leave the property, milk, beef, chickens, eggs, whatever. It's not usually staying on the property. So their access is still gonna always be the issue. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I think as far as the access goes, that's one thing, but as far as the way I feel about this type of business, I think it's a really positive thing, and I would be in complete support of this. The agricultural tourism sort of side of it, I think is a great thing. It's you know, and you're talking about specific, you know, rules. As far as the idea in general, I think it's great, and all power to them. I think, you know, like you say, there is another distillery in town, and that does a really good job. But this is kind of a different thing where you go out to the farm and you see all the you know, how it's all done and everything, and it's a great idea. It's a tough business, but beautiful piece of property, I think. Like the, you know, the farm strong kind of thing. I don't know if anybody's been to that. It's incredible. It's great. You go, you know, you go onto the farm and do the whole thing and then have lunch and all that kind of stuff. I would, yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think that anything we can do to help them would be a good thing.
Gordon, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Brian. I mean, this is, you know, if you ever been to farms, like you said, it's Farm Strong or whatever you call it, it is amazing experience, you know, you'll be able to go out there and maybe one day he'll have a little restaurant there, pizza, and just like they do, and you can have tasters, and I think it'd be great. The access is a little bit of an issue, but I'd support, you know, I'd support it for sure.
I would kayak up to their place, go and have a tasting.
A dry kayak.
Yeah. Go one way.
It's,
Go ahead, Terry.
I just for clarity, I just want to know exactly where this piece of property is and that particular house that's on this property. Is that big post and beam house on the corner of the river next to Jason or Garrett's and Melanie's?
I believe it's north, is it Melanie that we've dealt
I
with at
think
the
they're
farm?
adjacent to that, and that's the
I'm
end,
trying to remember. her
right on the
picture
borders
perfect.
of Sycamores.
This is the most northern property in Sycamores.
Okay,
Mhm.
I know it. There's right across this, as this far corner of this river. That's my property. I'm looking at this particular building. They have a beautiful complex on the river right there. So see that being developed into something commercial for sure, but just trying to get it figured out as to where exactly this piece of property is.
So, support them doing what they want to do. And I don't know what the authority of the district of Sycamores is, and certain things that we can approve, but it all has to be under that ALR guideline. And there are a lot of things in this community that are on ALR land that don't meet any of the rules. They still exist. So I'm just saying that if you have ALR land, they have the rules for it. Like, my problem with my property is that growing garlic and potatoes and spuds and stuff like that, the ALR rules about accommodations, that's what's killing it. I can't, I have to buy a guy a house someplace else to live in to be an employee on my property, which is. So until these guys do this, they're gonna need staff. The cheapest place to put accommodations would be on that property, but it's not allowed. So that's one of the issues with that, you know, as long as this proponent is made aware of what's allowed and not allowed, so that when he makes his decisions to move forward, because he can't build housing units. He built 960 square feet. That's it. So he's got problems for staff. So he's gonna take a few staff members and his access. As long as he's made aware of those points.
Two residents on ALR land.
Yeah, his and somebody else.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Or so you need a residence for orders. Put up with. Or
Well, and you can combine it in your principal home too, because there's a maximum floor area footprint, ground floor of 500 square meters, which is huge. So combine it in there. It's not a limit on number of bedrooms.
The suite in your home.
Yeah.
Well, I looked at that, but my place didn't fit. In fact, I got penalized. So go ahead, Terry.
Thanks. So take a look at this and the possibility of it. And now that the province has kind of downloaded these applications to the CSRD and now the District of Sycamores. And as far as timelines and time consumed by staff in order to go through this onerous process, what do you think? Where are we at with now? I think we should go ahead with this. I think we should research it. It might benefit us in the future when it comes to some of these developments. But what they have going here, and when it comes to, and probably already know this, but they're looking at rye and corn, and they're looking at for 50% of the inputs required for the distillery based on the fact that they would grow this product on agricultural land. Might be beneficial and maybe being successful with this application, because that's kind of what they're looking for. So going through the process, I think, would be a good exercise for us to go through the process and see where we'd end up.
That's basically what we've said, but I always like to make sure staff informs the proponent. These are gonna kick you right in the face obstacles that you need to realize you gotta get by. And these are not within our control. MOTI is not within the district of control, what they say. And we don't have any clout with the ALC. So if there's anything that they want to slightly vary or change, those two, we're going, fill your boots. They have two people who are not, in my opinion, that workable. MOTI and the ALR.
Sure.
Any other comments?
No, Terry, well, just Terry built a paddle across the river.
Down the river to go to the distillery. I'll park my canoe on the corner.
Well, now that they put his crossing back in on that, across the railroad tracks, he can drive to that corner of the field, then maybe get one of the rope things to go across.
I might grow rye and corn on my place and supply the distillery. I don't know. Anyway,
Okay, so if there's no further discussion on that, we'll move along to 5G. 21248 DP 393 Coach Road. Who has this? Sarah, go ahead.
Pretty exciting day, everyone. Coach Road has come to the PDC again.
Help me where?
To this committee meeting. So I know some of the committee members have been asking after it, wondering where it's at. So we're ready to move forward with it now, which is excellent. So it's in a low density residential land use designation, and it abuts the rail trail corridor in purple there. It's been partially within the watercourse development permit area. You can see on the far right near the top, that's the watercourse development permit area. You can see how it overlaps subject property. And it's zoned R1 and 2. So there is a building permit application for a dwelling unit that I believe is on hold at the moment, waiting for the resolution of this development permit. Next slide. So what the proposal for the issue that a couple retaining walls went in without the development permit being issued. So they did make an application for a development permit. They submitted everything to the province. And then it just kind of went silent. Because that happened and the province hadn't reviewed their wrapper assessment yet, the province kicked it back and was like, well, we can't approve this now. So they had to go through this other process where they do a condition and impact assessment report instead of a wrapper report. And it's just around mitigating any potential damage to fish habitat, that may have occurred. So here's what they're proposing. They're proposing the whole rear yard will be grassed, and then they will have several native plant species put in the rear yard. So 6 to 8 native trees and a minimum of 12 native shrubs would go in. And this would have the effect of helping to protect the streamside protection and enhancement area, which is located on the rail trail property, from any erosion or sediment or like storm flows coming off the property and entry into the SPIA and potentially into the lake, which would affect water quality and potentially fish habitat. So that's their proposal. And it's for these two retaining walls here.
Well, that's all good.
Yeah.
So it says proposed development permit. They're already building the house. They haven't even slowed down on that. So did they get a development permit for the house?
They didn't need one for the house. So where the development permit area is roughly here, right? So the house itself wasn't in the development area, I don't believe.
But they needed
It's
a,
rear yard that is.
did they need a permit to build the house from the
Yeah,
district?
they have a building. They do.
We've issued a building permit to build the house.
Yeah. And yeah, potentially issued in error at that time. It was in a time of changeover staff, the district.
So when did the owner figure that they actually needed to, because the SPIA is 30 meters, not 15.
The SPIA is 15, the riparian assessment area is 30,
Okay.
which is consistent with our development permit area, right? So to do any disturbance of soil, changing grade, erection of buildings or structures, you would need a development permit to build in that area. So even though it's not in the SPIA, it's still in the development permit area, and it relates to protection of the SPIA, right? So that's where that comes in. So they need to go through this process in order to basically make good with the province so that any future development they want to do in their rear yard, they will be able to move through the normal process and get permits to do that. So if they wanted to do any other buildings in the backyard or other structures, decks, I don't know. They don't have any plans at this point, as far as I'm aware, but that's what they need to do to make good with the province, so they can go through the normal process. Sure.
So just to go back to, you said that the district issued the building permit in error because we did.
We used to have a different building inspector that was very up on things like the riparian area regulation or dump permits.
Okay.
Predated myself.
Yeah. Okay. Brian?
So when the owner started to build, did they contact a QEP and start working with a QEP?
They did, yes. And that was all taken care of, like it was all in process, and we had an application for a development permit. But it all kind of fell apart. There wasn't any communication, I guess, on the building permit side, and building permits were issued without that development permit, which then kind of messed up their whole approval process with the province, because now the development had occurred prior to.
So if I building a house in this same situation, which I have lots of times, I would say first call would be, I'd get the QEP. I'd get them to establish what they were gonna vary the setback from 30 to 18 meters, 15, whatever, and then figure all that out with the survey and everything, and then build a house. They've done all that correctly, but then so then I just don't understand how it fell apart from there.
It's really more the retaining walls themselves.
So the retaining walls were put in the wrong place.
So the house, I'd have to go back and look at the surveys. I don't think that it's in the riparian assessment area and therefore the development area. So the building permit for the house itself was probably fine to be issued, but
Right.
the district issued building permits for the retaining walls. And those needed a development permit.
So this is the.
I get it. I just,
Yeah.
are they in the right place or the wrong place?
They, in this case, are really lucky that they're not inside the area. So this is where then there's a real problem is from here down.
Yeah, and
If
then,
something happened
and,
there, there would.
and so their QEP established that line for them, and they're not within that.
Exactly.
So they're not on side, they're not offside with the province for environmental. It's just the development permit and the district.
It's paperwork.
Chronology.
Yeah, sorry, that explains it a little better. Go ahead.
Essentially, if you want to develop within 30 meters of the lake,
Right.
you need a development permit. They went forward, built the retaining walls and started the house without a development permit.
Okay.
When they did engage the qualified professional, they came up with a 15-meter setback. So all the work they've done was outside of that 15-meter setback.
So they thought they were okay.
Well, no, so then they are okay, except they still need an assessment on what to do in order to make up for any errors they made. If they would have done it all in the right order, they would have that 15-meter setback, and they probably could have gone through the process much quicker without as much compensation for those things. But because they did it without getting the QEP first, they kind of went in through the back door, and the province has a different process, and it just takes longer.
Okay,
And it forced them.
that's what I was looking for. Yeah, that was the order that's where it was. So, yeah, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Okay, comment?
So they're dealing with the province. So it's just a different process and,
They need our approval first.
oh, okay.
Province is saying you get your
Yes.
development permit, which
Yeah.
the town should probably.
They won't, the province will not look at it till they get the development permit, so they need us to approve it. We're on the list of approvals.
Yep,
Right?
yep.
It's gotta go through the whole process, so First Nations, I'm assuming, all the references gotta get made. Not just us.
You're kind of backwards. In order for us to issue a development permit within 30 meters of the lake, we need provincial approval. So they've just got their provincial approval. Now we can.
Now
issue-
it's back at us.
Okay, so
This is the order in which this happened.
Gordon, any comment?
Well, I mean, things happen. We did go through a few staff there in the development side. I'm okay with it, you know?
Well, we were going, the discussion was, well, the big thing was what was the order? Did they actually hire a QEP? Or did they hire a QEP after they actually had a QEP?
They were doing everything in the correct order, but some of the permits were issued in error, right?
Okay.
And they got them into hot water.
Okay.
Right?
So,
They shouldn't have been issued before we received our notification from the province. And then we would have been able to issue a development permit. And once that was issued, the building permit could have been issued.
so
Normal order.
we've now received the thing from the province. So this is the next step that would normally happen anyway. Okay, so the province had no issues with it.
They can't really, all they will say is that the local government needs to be satisfied with it because it's kind of outside of the realm of the wrapper. So it's in this realm of a condition and impact assessment, which is a report that's contemplated in their professional best practice guidelines, the College of Applied Biology. And that is going to get built into the wrapper in the upcoming months or year. There was an information session about that to help deal with retroactive processes after development's been done. So we are functioning on a path that will become official in time.
All right, so I'm going to read the recommendation that the Planning and Development Committee recommend council authorize and issue a development permit number 2148. Property legally described as Strata Lot 2, Section 36, Township 21, Range 8, west of the 6th Meridian, Kamloops Division, Yale District, Strata Plan KAS 2057. Located at 393 Coach Road to resolve the unauthorized construction of retaining walls. Deb and Brian, all in favor? Good to go. Take her to council. Thank you. All right, now, the fun part. Board must have something to say about this. Parks and Trails Master Plan, Active Transportation Master Plan, consultation update is this.
Yeah, that's me. So we completed all the preliminary and the background works for our engagement processes this summer. We created a website, which is a story map website, and the link is on our district website. I can show you that this is the Active Transportation and Parks and Trails Master Plan website. And then people can go through this and understand what the project is about, what active transportation is about, what Parks and Trails Master Plan is about. And then we have survey embedded within this software. So either you can click on this link and finish the survey or do the survey within this website. We are working on having an interactive map soon, which would give the ability for the public to click certain, I guess, intersections or challenges and include their comments into the map, which we could take into consideration and then give it to urban systems. Yeah, so we had our engagement with the high school kids this Monday, which was very interesting. We had Sarah, Scott, Jason, and Campton as facilitators. They had really good comments. And we had open house, our first open house yesterday, which went good too. There were some grade 5 students who showed up. We had all good comments. All those notes and comments and stuff would be recorded and then passed on to urban systems and also included in our engagement processes as well. The next steps would be to have pop-up in the park, on the beach park and Finlayson Park, and then integrating with July 1 events with the recreation department. So the effort is to go wherever we could meet people and get their input as much as possible. And then we have an open house too scheduled for next month. And then there is a workshop for stakeholders and right holders, which is going to be conducted by the urban systems next month as well. That's the general update so far regarding consultation.
So I have a question. If you're trying to get this out there, and you're going to use the Canada Day or July 1st and the open house or whatever. I don't know. Is info on the go active?
Yeah.
So are they going to be part of this?
The urban systems?
Info on the go, which is through the chamber, Sheila, which they have a little trailer and handouts and stuff. So I read the parks and everything already.
Yeah, I think we have submitted an ad for what's new in the shoe, that edition with Sheila, but we could still have some posters and handouts ready where we can have that code, which people could scan, and that would take you to the survey page.
Okay, so but I've suggested we funded the info on the go and the chamber. So I would strongly suggest, because they go in everywhere, that you get them involved in this, get the information out there.
Yeah.
They talk to lots of people.
Yeah, and then we are also including social media, Instagram, Facebook. And we have some contacts from the public who said that they would be interested to get information regarding the project. So we would send individual emails to them.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Any other comments? Yeah.
No, it's good.
Well, I think it's great. Because I've marked up my active transportation network plan, and I'll give that to Steffi, and she can take my notes and do whatever she wants with them. But yeah, no, I think it's really good that we got the community engaged, and we're looking forward to the results.
So I'm gonna ask, because this is part of an active transportation, but it's part of our transportation thing. And there's about 4 people now that got signal lights and a horn and the license plate on their side-by-sides. And they're allowed to be driving them not only to the hill, but in town, except for the exclusion of a bar or whatever. What do you know about that?
I did hear from one of our locals that has a side by side. He contacted the RCMP. He told him what he needed to have on a side by side as a more of a experimental, let's try it out, you know, let's police yourself and see how the industry does. So right now there's, I think, 2 or 3 that are done. There's actual, the manufacturer in Vernon that builds certified electric ones, golf carts. They're more like a golf cart. They're already approved. They're in our bylaw and that's approved. So that's driving around the street, which is pretty unique to see. It's kind of similar to what Mike has.
Yeah.
From Red's Rental. But as for side by sides, yeah. Todd Kylo was the first one to get it done. I know Mitch and Mike from Red's Rental, they're all getting ready to get it done. But you have to go, it's basically going straight to the hill. And you can stop at the gas station. It'll allow you to cross the Transcanada to go over to Queast. But it's not going downtown shopping. You can do that with the electric one, but you can't do that with a gasoline off-road vehicle. So I thought I'd call. So I got all that from Murray and then I thought, I'm gonna call back and see if I can get my quad done. But he said, not yet, where I'm not gonna go, because you can buy kits for quads.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what's the difference? I said, the motorbike doesn't need signal lights. I can drive down the street with a motorbike without signal lights and use my arms, just like, you know, you do on a motorbike. And he said, I'm not there yet. I says, okay, well, we'll keep working on you. And hopefully Todd and Mitch and the crew is we're all gonna police them and they're gonna police themselves and we're gonna hopefully build this to a, you know.
Allowable use.
Allowable use.
That's great. That's.
Yeah. Well, we started on this so long ago. The only thing I remember about the start is going to UBCM and a woman saying it's taken her 20 years to put a license plate on an off-road vehicle. And I just about went through the roof, like 20 years to put a license plate on an ORV. But they finally got it done. So
That's exciting.
so that's good. All right. Housing strategy update. Who has this? Go ahead, Sarah.
Next slide, please. Okay, so update on the housing strategy. The committee has been meeting regularly. So at this point, the committee has pulled together a vision statement, goals, and strategies. We're currently at the point where staff is drafting a plan based on that information that will be for review by the Housing Committee at their July 7th meeting. We've also have set in place some target dates for engagement, which would be mid-August for the public. And then for rights holders and stakeholders, probably like mid-September, giving people time to get back to work and get their kids in school. Early this week, we actually also met with Slatson, a couple of their staff and one of their elders, council members, to just, introduce them to the projects that we're working on, such as the housing strategy, just to give them a heads up in terms of, that it's going to be coming to them for referral, for consultation, in terms of, ways that perhaps they might want to be involved with that. So that's our update on the housing strategy.
Comment.
Sounds good.
Coming, looking good.
Zoning bylaw 1000 consultation update. Who's got this?
This is a joint presentation.
A joint presentation.
Between Scott and I. So I'll begin. So we've split the consultation, the engagement. This is a new word we've learned after talking to Slatson. Consultation is something else, FYI. So we split it into 2 separate engagement sessions. So we'll start with short-term rentals with an open house on July 15th. We're going to advertise the snot out of it to make sure everybody knows. And then we'll follow that with one on the whole bylaw as a whole in early August, so August 5th. And we met with Spotson earlier this week and talked to them about the new zoning bylaw as well.
Then with Ministry of Transportation, I think we've found a way to move the bylaw forward, and council's gonna be looking at a grant application for an integrated community transportation plan. And I think the idea is if we partner with them on this integrated community transportation plan, we should be able to satisfy them moving forward. Maybe going back to your comments where, you know, they had the plan and they wanted to, you know, drive the bus. And I think with our community transportation plan, we'd be the ones who'd engage the contractor. We'd have a set of deliverables back to Ministry of Transportation. So we'd hire the contractor, and we'd report back to Ministry of Transportation that we're meeting their goals. And I think that should be a path forward, not only for our zoning bylaw, but also for our engineering department, because they have lots of questions about, you know, where they should be focusing their attention. And then also just about the highway and four-laning the highway and that other study that they were looking at doing back to Rama Road. So I think, you know, we're gonna kind of try and take control of the process and work in a partnership with MOTI on that.
So my understanding would be, if I heard you correctly, the 50 or 60,000 that they had allocated that they were going to do from the Broom Bridge to Rama Road, that would become a part of our study, combined it with the other stuff.
Correct.
And so then we're still going to apply for a grant for the other portion.
Right.
We apply for, or are they giving us the 50, or is that part of the grant process?
I think we're gonna apply for the grant, and we have a budget of about $160,000 to do the work we think we need to do. Ministry of Transportation has offered, yeah, we haven't come up with a number yet, but it was 50% or $50,000 or $60,000. But we're gonna apply for the grant, and if we get that 160 for the whole grant, then we can move forward with it. We probably have about $50,000 in our budget to contribute towards it. So if the Ministry of Transportation goes 50-50, we might have, you know, 110 to go forward with it. But yeah, I think the main thing is that we'll be hiring the contractor. So we'll be moving forward with it. They'll be our partner, but basically we'll be reporting back to them.
So the critical question, timeline. Like, what day do you think you'll actually start this study?
Good question. Probably, I would like to say September.
The grant funding is available today.
The grant funding, well, it's probably not available today. It will probably be 6 to 9 months before we get the grant funding, but after we submit the application, we can start spending money. So, and I think once we enter into an agreement with Ministry of Transportation to do the study, I think they'll approve the bylaw just under the fact that we have that agreement in place.
Okay, all right, well, that's good. Any other comments?
Oh, good.
All right. Keep it moving. PDC schedule. School meeting July 13th. PDC.
So the planning and
Development Committee, meeting on July 13th because we got nothing new to talk about.
Well, I think because we've been working so hard, we've had 25 meetings, 25 PDC meetings, I counted them. And outside of our zoning bylaw and our housing strategy and our short-term rentals, we've dealt with 18 pre-application meetings. We've had 22 development permits, 25 development variance permits, 6 zoning bylaws, 3 temporary use permits, and as of today, 1 ALC permit. So I think we've all been working so hard and I've got you guys fed, so I know you're in a good mood. Sarah and Steffi want to focus the next couple of weeks on their consultation and not have to worry about doing stuff. And we jam-packed this agenda. I'm gone for 3 weeks, so we're recommending.
There's the bigger reason.
We recommend the committee skip the next meeting.
So.
I don't think we have.
You know what I suggest? I'd say this is a good idea, but next Wednesday, you have to leave enough funding for wings and beers, because if we're not having a meeting, we gotta at least meet, because
And he's
this one there,
Yeah,
we won't be able to sustain ourselves for 4 weeks.
tell you what, you get me a receipt for wings. We'll probably cover that. The beer, you're on your own.
Good job. Any other comments, Gord?
Yeah, no, hope you have a good holiday here. And, but we're not holding up anybody. There's nothing pressing or anything.
Yeah, August is tough, gonna be a tough month for me, but I'll be able to zoom in. I'm gonna be doing a lot of fishing. Very important part of my job. is to-
Captain,
Yeah, captain boat,
Researching,
that's right,
Yeah.
R&D.
yeah,
Well, thanks for commenting on what we've done in 25 meetings or 26 meetings, so thanks to the committee.
Why hasn't anything been done though, like people? Yeah, that's the problem, is the shovels in the ground.
I'd like I think the shovel's going in the ground down at the Chevron. I think they started to clean up down there, haven't they?
yeah, they're starting to clean up. It's, you can't find anybody to do any work. That's the problem.
Materials.
And materials and, everything's, whether you're talking trusses or whatever it is, everything's pushed back and everybody's a little gun shy right now. And sure, we approve all these, but they don't come to fruition, so.
Okay, so that brings up a comment that I have that was talked about by this committee loosely. We don't issue a building permit until the person has the drawings, including the trusts, all right? Well, the trusts are completely separate if you're building, and when you start with concrete floor and you do this, you've ordered your truss, but you're waiting for that. Why is it that we won't issue the permit? There's lots of communities that do issue the permit without having that truss drawing, because like the truss, there's a lot of your footings, your foundation, your walls. There's a lot of things that you could have done before you need the truss. In fact, you actually have to have all that done before you need the truss. So why is it that we don't allow that?
we do issue foundation permits.
Okay.
And sometimes we require a foundation permit application, or I know Dale has approved the foundations prior to seeing the trusses, so we do, but typically we require the drawing of the trusses, which is, usually part of the house, right? That they need to know where to put the foundations, they need that information on the trusses, but it's best to wait till you have a complete package, so, when you give the permit, then you have all the drawings and say, here's your permit, but we do issue foundation permits.
Gord?
I think I did have, it wasn't a complaint, it was just a concern that, somebody wanted to move forward. And he might be a new builder, or first time builder, or what do you want to call it? Anyways, he's not gonna, we have the final say on whether he needs to move into the building or the home. But if you could give him the footing and the construction, you could start construction. The building inspector is gonna be the last person it's gonna be the one that's gonna approve the trusses. Most homes are all engineered, they're all got a stamp. They're gonna get a stamp, but if the guy's out in the yard putting together his trusses with a screw gun, you can put a halt on everything. But if we could keep it going, maybe Brian can help us in that one.
I can understand what you're saying, but in light of the way that the way the market is, like my truss designer, like we get the plans and we actually are booking for 9 to 12 months before we can get the trusses. So we're so far in advance. Now, if you've got a new home builder or where you've got somebody that is is a homeowner builder that would not know to be like ordering things ahead of time. Like the building inspector has the hammer as far as, okay, so if you give them a full permit and somebody starts going. An old building inspector told me one time, said, Brian, you don't have your survey here, but if you put this in the wrong place, you're gonna have to pay to get it hammered out. You're gonna have to dig it out, so it'll be on you. So if you gave somebody a permit, building permit, and they started construction and they put in the foundation, that would be inspected. The rebar gets inspected, the plumbing and at each stage, there's a place for the building inspector to stop construction, say, okay, wait a second, what's going on with your plans? And if they say, look, if you don't have your truss drawings by this point, then you're not starting framing. And if you don't have your truss drawings, you're not gonna get your subfloor. So it's kind of like one and the same. And it's kind of like when you need a structural engineer, we don't do the design first. We get a Schedule B from the structural engineer, and then we give it to the town. And that says that the engineer is going to take responsibility for that house. He's done part of the design, but he hasn't done it all. So it could be a little bit of lenient just based on where we're sitting right now to try and help. And, it could be a case by case thing. If the Yarmouth group said it was doing the same thing, I probably wouldn't give them a permit. But if it's like a simple house, and somebody, is, needing a building permit, it might be I just don't know how much liability the district has. Because if the inspector can shut them down at any stage, then you've still got the hammer. You know what I mean?
I don't think there'd be anybody who would saying, hey, I need to get started today. I have my concrete guy lined up for a month from now. I need to get started today. And, my truss drawings 3 months out. I don't think, I think Dale would issue the permit based on that. And Dale and I've had that conversation a couple times where people are at stage A, they want to move forward. So we talk about it, and usually it's, let's move forward. We want.
Yeah, I've got a foundation permit last year for the same reason. I got the foundation permit, and then by the time, I was waiting for something else, then I got the rest of the permit. So I just think that, maybe some lenience for people that are not professional, I don't know if that's something to think about.
So on another note, we're like this close to putting an offer to a building official.
Great.
So we're hoping that, by July 25th would be the start date, and a little bit overlap with that person in Dale, and then we'll have an in-house building, split their time between building inspection and as a carpenter for the town. So all those little jobs that need doing around and all the facilities, then we'll have some
great
staff can do those and take some of the weight off Daryl's plate as well. So
What level?
it would be it's called a building official in training, and they'd be qualified to work as a level 1. You have to work in municipality for a year before you're actually certified level 1. So it'd be, and then kind of goes all the way up. They have all the education for level 3. So it would be 3 years before they'd be a certified level 3, but first year they could work as a level 1, second year level 2, third year level 3, and after that third year they'd be a certified level 3.
So are you saying that this individual's taken all these courses already? Not all
They've done their education.
wow.
Journeyman carpenter.
They're journeyman carpenter. And a plumber, I believe, as well.
Wow. I'm not gonna be able to get away with anything.
All right, you know what? There's only lunch.
That's right.
Okay, is there any other comments? Well, look at that, 5-1. So I'd like to bid you all adieu. Adjournment. Recommendation that the Planning and Development Committee meeting for June 22nd, 2022 be adjourned, the time being 12:57. All in favor? So be it. be some of you back here at 2 o'clock.
Thanks for lunch.
Awesome.